Commander Park Tae-jin stood on the bridge of his massive alien ship, looking down at the blue planet below him. Earth looked so peaceful from space with its white clouds and deep blue oceans. But Park knew this peace would not last much longer. His fleet of 200 black warships surrounded the planet like hungry wolves circling their prey. For 300 years, Park had led invasion fleets across the galaxy, conquering world after world. No species had ever survived more than 3 days against the mighty Korath Empire today. Earth would join the long list of defeated planets. Park smiled, showing his sharp reptilian teeth as he gave the order to begin the attack. The black ships descended through Earth's atmosphere like falling meteors. Their hulls glowed red-hot from the friction, but the advanced alien metal did not melt or break. The ships moved in perfect formation, casting dark shadows over the cities below. People on the ground looked up in terror as the alien fleet blotted out the sun. In Los Angeles, Lieutenant Commander Kim Do-hyun crouched behind the wreckage of an overturned car. His Navy SEAL team had been running training exercises at the beach when the sky suddenly filled with alien ships. Now the city around him burned as energy beams cut through buildings like hot knives through butter. Do-hyun pressed his radio to his ear, trying to make sense of the panicked voices flooding the military channels. Reports came in from around the world. Military bases destroyed, government buildings vaporized, entire cities turned to ash within hours. The aliens attacked with surgical precision, targeting anything that could organize human resistance. A low humming sound made Do-hyun look up. An alien patrol craft floated overhead, its blue energy core pulsing rhythmically. Through his rifle scope, he could see 8-foot-tall creatures in powered armor walking through the streets. They moved like robots, following exact patterns as they searched every building. The aliens herded surviving humans like cattle, forcing them into groups in the open squares. Do-hyun watched in horror as families were separated and loaded onto transport ships that disappeared into the dark sky above. The creatures showed no emotion as they carried out their work like this was just another routine job. Do-hyun pulled out his satellite phone, one of the few still working thanks to military encryption. His orders came through clearly: gather intelligence on enemy capabilities and establish resistance networks. It seemed impossible with the city burning around him and alien ships controlling the sky. But Do-hyun had never failed a mission, and he would not start now. Above, in the command ship, Park received reports from his ground commanders. The conquest proceeded exactly as planned. Most humans fled in terror or surrendered immediately when they saw the Korath forces. A few primitive military units tried to fight back with their kinetic weapons. But Korath energy shields turned bullets into harmless sparks. Park walked to the observation deck of his ship and looked down at the burning cities below. This was always his favorite part of a conquest, watching a proud civilization realize they had no chance of victory. The humans would learn what every other species had learned. The Korath Empire was unstoppable, but in a basement beneath the ruins of a police station, Do-hyun was already studying his enemy. He watched security camera footage of alien soldiers moving through the streets, analyzing their patterns and equipment. These creatures were strong and heavily armed, but they moved like they had never faced guerrilla warfare. The aliens cleared rooms like they expected direct confrontation, not hidden enemies who struck from shadows. They followed strict patrol routes and checked in at regular intervals. Their tactics worked perfectly against conventional armies, but Do-hyun was not a conventional soldier. He was a Navy SEAL trained to win by any means necessary. Do-hyun began making contact with scattered military units using encrypted frequencies. His plan was simple. While the aliens celebrated their easy victory, he would organize the survivors into something the Korath Empire had never faced before. He would turn ordinary humans into guerrilla fighters who could strike anywhere and disappear into the shadows. The first day of occupation ended with Park reviewing casualty reports in his command center. 0 Korath deaths. Minimal equipment damage, human resistance already crumbling. Tomorrow they would begin the harvest phase, stripping the planet of useful materials and enslaving the survivors. It was exactly like the previous 299 conquest. Park had no way of knowing that 3 floors below his feet, Do-hyun was mapping the tunnel systems beneath Los Angeles. The SEAL had already identified 17 different routes that could move small teams undetected through the city. He had located weapons caches and safe houses that the aliens had missed in their initial sweep. As alien victory celebrations echoed through the command ship, Do-hyun was preparing for a very different kind of war. The Korath Empire was used to fighting civilized species who followed rules of engagement. They had never encountered someone trained to win at any cost using any method necessary. They were about to learn what happened when they tried to cage an apex predator. The aliens had made a critical error. In their assessment of human capabilities, they saw primitive weapons and crude technology and assumed humans would be easy to defeat. But they failed to understand the most important thing about humans. When pushed to the edge of extinction, humans did not surrender. They adapted. They learned. They became more dangerous than their enemies could imagine. Do-hyun looked at the list of contacts he had gathered in just one day. Former soldiers, police officers, civilians with useful skills, people who had lost everything to the alien invasion and wanted revenge. The network was small now, but it would grow. Every person the aliens killed would create 10 more who wanted to fight back. The alien patrol schedules were already becoming predictable. Do-hyun had timed their movements down to the minute. Their communication frequencies followed patterns that could be decoded with patience. Their supply routes ran through areas where small teams could set up ambushes. The aliens were disciplined, but that discipline made them predictable. In his private quarters, Park prepared his evening report to the High Command. Another successful conquest complete ahead of schedule with minimal losses. Earth would provide excellent resources and the human population would make adequate slave labor. The planet would be fully processed within 6 months. But down in the tunnels beneath the burning city, Do-hyun was writing a very different kind of report. He documented alien weaknesses, equipment specifications, and tactical patterns. His intelligence would be shared with every surviving military unit on the planet. The aliens thought they had won, but the real war was just beginning. The Korath Empire had conquered hundreds of worlds, but they had never faced humans. They had never encountered a species that had spent its entire history perfecting the art of warfare. They were about to discover that Earth was not just another planet to be harvested. It was the home of the most dangerous predators. In the Galaxy A's, the first night of occupation fell over Earth. 2 very different commanders prepared for what was to come. Park planned for a routine harvest operation, while Do-hyun planned for total war. The aliens had won the first battle, but Do-hyun would make sure they regretted ever coming to Earth. 3 days after the invasion began, Commander Park stood in his command center studying reports that made him frown. Small groups of humans were launching attacks against his patrol units. Nothing serious yet, just a few soldiers killed here and some equipment destroyed there. But something about these attacks felt different from the usual desperate last stands. The attacks showed planning and coordination that Park had not expected from such a primitive species. The humans struck at weak points in patrol routes and disappeared before reinforcements could arrive. They seemed to know exactly when and where Korath forces would be most vulnerable. This was not random violence but organized resistance. Do-hyun had spent those 3 days moving through the underground tunnel systems beneath Los Angeles like a ghost. His Navy SEAL training and reconnaissance proved invaluable as he mapped every inch of alien-controlled territory. The Korath soldiers were disciplined and well-equipped, but they were also predictable. Every alien patrol followed the same routes at the same times. Their communication checks happened every 30 minutes like clockwork. They set up checkpoints at major intersections and cleared buildings in the same methodical pattern. Do-hyun documented everything, creating a detailed picture of enemy operations that would be worth its weight in gold. The SEAL commander had also discovered something crucial about alien technology. Their energy shields could stop bullets, but they drained power quickly. Their weapons were devastating but had limited ammunition. Their armor was strong but had weak points at the joints. Do-hyun filed away every detail, knowing that knowledge would mean survival. Working with him were 2 other survivors who had found their way to his underground base. Sergeant Lee Min-ho was a former Army Ranger who knew explosives and urban warfare. Staff Sergeant Choi Soo-jin was a communications expert who could intercept and decode alien transmissions. Together they formed the core of what would become the Pacific Resistance. Their first real target was a Korath supply depot that the aliens had established in an old shopping mall. The facility served as a distribution center for their harvesting operations, storing equipment, vehicles, and human prisoners who were being used as slave labor. The security was heavy, but Du Hyun had been watching for days. The attack plan was simple but required perfect timing. Min Ho would create a distraction at the main entrance, drawing the guards away from their posts. Soo-jin would disable the communication systems to prevent calls for help. Du Hyun would infiltrate through the ventilation system and plant explosives at key points at exactly 3 in the morning when alien guards were at their lowest alert. The attack began. Min Ho detonated small charges at the mall entrance, making it look like a much larger assault force. Soo-jin activated her jamming equipment, cutting off all communications to and from the facility. Du Hyun dropped from the ceiling into the storage areas. The aliens reacted exactly as Du Hyun had predicted. They rushed toward the distraction, leaving their rear areas vulnerable. The seal moved through the facility like death itself, placing charges with surgical precision. Every movement was calculated. Every action served a purpose. Within 17 minutes, the mission was complete. The explosion lit up the night sky as the supply depot went up in flames. 3 alien vehicles destroyed a warehouse full of harvesting equipment reduced to molten metal. 47 human prisoners freed and armed with captured weapons. But the real victory was psychological. The aliens had lost people to an enemy. They never saw Park received the damage report while eating his morning meal. The attack showed sophistication far beyond what his intelligence indicated humans possessed. Worse, it proved that some humans were not just surviving, but learning to fight back effectively. He immediately ordered increased security at all installations. But Du Hyun was already planning the next operation. Every successful attack provided more intelligence about alien capabilities and weaknesses. More importantly, each victory inspired other survivors to join the resistance. Word spread through hidden communication networks that humans could fight back and win. The alien response was swift and brutal. Park ordered his forces to begin executing human prisoners. In retaliation for resistance attacks, checkpoints became killing zones where civilians were shot for minor infractions. Entire city blocks were declared forbidden zones with orders to kill anyone found inside. These harsh measures only strengthened human resolve to resist. Du Hyun used alien brutality as a recruiting tool, showing potential fighters what would happen if they did not stand up for themselves. The resistance network grew from 3 soldiers to 30 within a week. Each new member brought skills and local knowledge. Soo-jin had made a breakthrough in understanding alien communication systems. The Korath used quantum encrypted channels for important messages, but their field units relied on standardized frequencies for routine operations. By monitoring these transmissions, the resistance could predict enemy movements hours in advance. Min Ho had been experimenting with captured alien power cells, learning to turn them into weapons their creators never intended. A single Korath energy pack, when properly modified, could generate an electromagnetic pulse strong enough to disable their shields and communication systems. It was dangerous work, but the results were deadly. The resistance tactics evolved from simple hit and run attacks to sophisticated ambushes that eliminated entire patrols without leaving survivors. Du Hyun had learned that dead aliens could not report back, so enemy commanders remained unaware of exactly how their forces were being destroyed. Park ordered Colonel Nex Vorthan, his chief of security, to investigate the attacks personally. Vorthan was a veteran of dozens of conquest campaigns who specialized in crushing resistance movements. He had destroyed rebellions on 17 different worlds using overwhelming force and psychological warfare. When Vorthan arrived on Earth, he found something he had never encountered before. The human resistance did not follow any recognizable pattern. They did not hold territory or protect civilian populations. They had no apparent command structure beyond small independent cells, yet they were becoming more effective with each operation. Vorthan decided to test human capabilities by launching a major sweep operation through downtown Los Angeles. 3 full battalions would clear every building and tunnel searching for resistance hideouts. The humans would be forced to fight or flee, and either way they would reveal their true strength and numbers. Du-hyun had anticipated this response. Using intelligence from intercepted communications, he evacuated the primary base and established multiple decoy positions throughout the city. As Korath forces spread out to investigate false targets, they walked into carefully prepared killing zones. Battle lasted 18 hours and changed everything. For the first time, Korath casualties exceeded human losses in a direct engagement. Forthan lost over 60 soldiers and 3 armored vehicles while capturing only empty buildings and abandoned equipment. The humans had not just survived the attack, they had won that night. Park stood in his command center reviewing casualty reports that made no sense. How could primitive humans with crude weapons defeat his elite forces in open combat? The numbers were impossible, yet the evidence was undeniable. Earth was proving to be unlike any world he had conquered. Du-hyun cleaned his weapons in a new hideout established in an abandoned subway tunnel. Around him, 30 resistance fighters prepared for the next operation. What had begun as 3 desperate survivors had become an organized force capable of defeating alien military units in direct combat. The aliens had made a critical error in their assessment of human nature. They expected a civilized species that would follow conventional rules of warfare. Instead, they found apex predators who had spent millennia perfecting the art of killing. Each battle taught the humans new lessons while the aliens learned nothing. Soo-jin intercepted another alien transmission indicating that Park was requesting reinforcements from the High Command. The easy conquest was becoming a costly occupation, and the Korath Empire was beginning to notice. Du-hyun smiled as he planned operations that would make them notice even more. 2 weeks after the invasion, Commander Park faced his first real crisis. What should have been a simple cleanup operation had become a growing nightmare. His ground commanders reported increasing casualties from what they called vermin attacks, small groups of humans using primitive weapons to strike at patrol supply lines and isolated outposts. The attacks were becoming more frequent and sophisticated each day. What started as desperate raids by scattered survivors had evolved into coordinated operations that showed military planning. Park had conquered over 50 worlds in his career, but he had never seen resistance that adapted so quickly to changing tactics. Du-hyun had established his main base in an abandoned subway system that connected half the city. The tunnels provided perfect cover for movement and storage, while multiple exits allowed quick escapes when alien forces got too close. His network had grown to include specialists from every branch of the military. Major Yoon Hae-jin was a military intelligence officer who had been analyzing captured alien technology piece by piece. Her breakthrough came when she managed to decrypt portions of the Korath communication protocol. The aliens used quantum encryption for sensitive data, but field units relied on standard tactical frequencies. Captain Nam So-young was a combat engineer who specialized in explosives and demolitions. She had been experimenting with alien power cells, learning to weaponize them in ways their creators never intended. Her workshop in the deepest part of the tunnel system produced devices that could disable entire alien vehicles. The Resistance had learned to predict alien movements with frightening accuracy. By monitoring routine communications, they knew when patrols would change shifts, where supply convoys would travel, and which facilities were lightly guarded. This information advantage turned every encounter into a trap. Nam had perfected a technique for modifying Korath energy packs into electromagnetic pulse weapons. One device properly placed could knock out alien shields, communication systems, and vehicle controls simultaneously. It was extremely dangerous work that had already killed 3 volunteers, but the results were worth the risk. Du-hyun implemented a new tactical doctrine that eliminated alien patrols without leaving survivors. Dead aliens could not report what happened to them, so Korath commanders remained confused about how their forces were disappearing. The uncertainty bred paranoia in the alien ranks. Park ordered Colonel Vorthan to personally investigate these mysterious disappearances. Vorthan was the Empire's most experienced counterinsurgency specialist who had crushed resistance movements across the galaxy using overwhelming force combined with terror tactics that broke enemy morale. When Vorthan studied the evidence, he found patterns that made no sense. Human attacks showed sophisticated planning, but no apparent strategic goals. They did not try to hold territory or protect populations. They existed only to kill Korath soldiers and steal their equipment. Most disturbing, they learned from every encounter. Vorthen decided to force the humans into open battle by conducting a massive sweep operation using 3 full battalions supported by aerial reconnaissance. His forces would move systematically through Los Angeles, destroying every possible hiding place until the resistance was forced to fight or die. Du Hyun had been expecting this move for days. Using intelligence gathered from intercepted communications, he knew exactly when and where the aliens would strike. The primary base was evacuated, and multiple decoy positions established throughout the sweep area. Each fake hideout contained deadly surprises. The operation began at dawn with coordinated strikes on suspected resistance locations. Alien forces spread across the city following predetermined search patterns. As they investigated empty buildings and abandoned tunnels, they walked into kill zones where Nam's electromagnetic weapons waited in ambush. The battle raged for 18 hours, turning downtown Los Angeles into a war zone. For the first time since the invasion began, human forces inflicted more casualties than they suffered. Vorthen lost 68 soldiers and 5 armored vehicles while capturing nothing but empty buildings and booby-trapped equipment. More importantly, the resistance captured intact alien weapons communication, devices and armor that Yoon immediately began studying. Each piece of captured technology revealed new weaknesses in Korath equipment and tactics. The humans were learning faster than their enemies could adapt. That night, Park stood in his command center trying to understand how primitive humans had defeated his elite forces. The casualty reports read like fiction, yet the evidence was undeniable. His occupation force was being systematically destroyed by an enemy that should not have been able to resist. Du Hyun inspected the alien equipment his teams had captured during the battle. Advanced energy weapons that could punch through concrete communication devices that operated on quantum frequencies. Armor that could stop most human weapons. Everything would be studied, reverse-engineered, and turned against its creators. The resistance had evolved beyond desperate survivors fighting for their lives. They had become hunters who stalked the most dangerous prey in the galaxy. The aliens who came to harvest Earth were discovering that humans made very poor victims but excellent predators. Yoon made another breakthrough when she cracked the alien tactical communication system. The Korath used predictable patterns for coordinating operations, allowing the resistance to intercept orders in real time. Du Hyun could now predict alien moves hours before they happened. Nam's latest creation was a portable cannon that fired concentrated electromagnetic pulses capable of disabling alien vehicles at long range. The weapon was built entirely from captured Korath technology, turned against its creators with human ingenuity. It could punch through alien armor like tissue paper. The psychological impact on Korath forces was becoming as important as the physical damage. Alien soldiers who had conquered dozens of worlds without fear now jumped at shadows and refused to patrol alone. Their legendary discipline was cracking under the pressure of fighting an invisible enemy. Park received reports that resistance activity was spreading beyond Los Angeles. Similar attacks were being reported in New York, Chicago, Houston, and other major cities. The humans were sharing tactics and technology through communication networks that seemed impossible to intercept or jam. Colonel Vorthen requested permission to implement extreme measures, including the execution of all human prisoners and the complete destruction of any area where resistance activity was detected. Park approved the measures, hoping that terror would succeed where military force had failed, but the harsh tactics only strengthened human resolve. Du Hyun used alien brutality as proof that surrender meant death anyway. Better to die fighting than live as slaves. The resistance network grew larger and more determined with each atrocity committed by the occupying forces. 3 weeks after the invasion, the situation had deteriorated beyond anything in Korath military history. An entire planetary occupation force was being steadily destroyed by an enemy using primitive weapons and guerrilla tactics. Park began composing his first request for reinforcements. Du Hyun stood in the ruins of what had been a Korath checkpoint that morning, studying the alien bodies scattered among the debris. His teams were becoming more efficient, with each operation taking fewer losses while inflicting greater damage on the enemy. The aliens had expected to fight a conventional war against a civilized opponent who followed established rules. Instead, they found themselves hunting an apex predator that had evolved over millions of years to be the perfect killer. The hunters had become The hunted Park realized too late that the Korath Empire had made a fundamental error in targeting Earth. They had assumed that technological superiority guaranteed victory, but humans possessed something more dangerous than advanced weapons. They had the will to win at any cost, and the intelligence to find a way. By the second month of occupation, Commander Park faced a reality he had never encountered in 3 centuries of conquest. What was supposed to be a routine resource extraction had become a grinding war of attrition that consumed soldiers and equipment at an alarming rate. His reports to the High Command changed from victory celebrations to urgent requests for reinforcements. Du Hyun had transformed from a lone survivor into the leader of a resistance network that spanned the entire Western United States. Communication links connected cells in Los Angeles with fighters in Seattle, Portland, and San Francisco. Each group operated independently, but shared intelligence, weapons, and tactical innovations. The resistance had learned to manufacture their own weapons using captured alien technology, combined with human engineering principles. Nam's workshop produced portable electromagnetic pulse devices that could disable Korath vehicles, while Yoon developed communication jammers that created dead zones where alien forces operated blind and confused. Major Kang Jae-sung coordinated operations from Chicago, where he had established an underground factory that produced ammunition specifically designed to penetrate Korath armor. Lieutenant Colonel Im Yoo-jin ran guerrilla campaigns throughout Texas using hit-and-run tactics that kept alien forces constantly off balance. The aliens responded with increasingly harsh security measures. Entire districts were declared forbidden zones with orders to kill any human found within the boundaries. Suspected resistance supporters faced immediate execution. Food distribution became conditional on providing information about guerrilla activities, but these brutal tactics only strengthened human determination to resist. Each atrocity created 10 new volunteers willing to fight against the occupying forces. Du Hyun used alien cruelty as his most effective recruitment tool, showing people what awaited them if they did not stand up and fight. Park's greatest concern was the declining morale among his own forces. Korath soldiers were trained for conquest warfare against conventional enemies who fought in predictable ways. They excelled at destroying military installations and terrorizing populations, but struggled against enemies who refused to fight fair. The turning point came when intelligence revealed that aliens were preparing to establish a massive processing facility in San Francisco. The complex would convert captured humans into slave labor for mining operations throughout the galaxy. The facility represented the next phase of Earth subjugation. Du Hyun coordinated with resistance cells throughout California to plan their largest operation yet. The goal was not just disrupting alien plans, but demonstrating that humans could strike at targets the Korath considered absolutely secure. The attack would require unprecedented cooperation between independent cells. Colonel Vorthan had learned from previous mistakes and prepared accordingly. The Golden Gate facility was protected by energy barriers, automated defense systems, and 3 full battalions of elite guards. He established surveillance posts throughout the Bay Area designed to detect approaching hostile forces. Commander Park Min-seo had established a naval resistance unit using submarines that operated from hidden underwater caves. Her forces specialized in aquatic operations that the aliens had never encountered before. The Korath Empire controlled space and land but had little experience with underwater warfare. The attack began simultaneously at multiple points. Min-seo's submarines launched vessels loaded with Nam's experimental explosives against the facility's underwater supports. Jae-sung led diversionary attacks throughout the region, forcing aliens to divide their defensive forces. Im Yoo-jin's team infiltrated the perimeter using stolen alien stealth technology that made them nearly invisible to enemy sensors. The main assault came from an unexpected direction when Do Hyun discovered that energy barriers were vulnerable to coordinated electromagnetic pulses delivered from specific angles using modified alien aircraft captured in previous operations. Resistance pilots conducted precision bombing runs that temporarily disabled the entire defensive grid. The aliens found themselves facing attacks from land, sea, air, and underwater simultaneously. Their rigid tactical doctrine could not adapt quickly enough. The battle lasted 3 days and nights. When the smoke cleared, the Golden Gate facility was a smoking ruin. 3 Korath battalions had been eliminated, and Colonel Vorthan was dead among the wreckage. The aliens had lost more personnel and equipment than in any single engagement since arriving on Earth. More importantly, the victory had strategic consequences that reached far beyond the immediate tactical success. News of the Resistance victory spread to human populations around the globe, inspiring similar uprisings against alien occupying forces. What started as isolated guerrilla attacks was evolving into planetary rebellion. Park stood in the wreckage of what should have been his greatest achievement, watching smoke rise from the ruins of the processing facility. Around him lay the bodies of Korath soldiers, killed by weapons that should not have existed, and tactics that defied conventional military doctrine. The psychological impact was devastating to alien morale. For the first time in their history, Korath forces faced an enemy that seemed to grow stronger with each battle. Human resistance was no longer about survival, it had become about victory, and the aliens could sense the change. Yoon had made another breakthrough by completely reverse engineering alien quantum communication systems. The Resistance could now monitor all Korath military traffic in real time, allowing them to anticipate and counter every move before it happened. The information advantage was becoming decisive. Nam's latest creation was a weapon that used gravitational fields to tear apart alien armor from the inside. The technology was beyond anything in the Korath arsenal, representing a fusion of human theoretical physics with captured alien engineering principles. It made their best defenses useless. The Resistance had also achieved something the aliens could not counter. They moved freely through tunnel networks and underground facilities that connected major population centers. Their supply lines were invisible, their bases were hidden, and their numbers were unknown. Reports reached Du Hyun of uprisings on other worlds throughout the Korath Empire. Subjugated populations that had accepted defeat for centuries were suddenly launching their own resistance movements using tactics learned from studying human operations. The revolution was spreading beyond Earth. Park received the message he had been dreading. The High Command was dispatching General Thak Mordian, the Empire's most feared military strategist, to assume control of Earth operations. Park's failure to complete the conquest was being viewed as a threat to Korath reputation throughout the galaxy. General Mordian arrived with a reputation that preceded him across the stars. He had crushed rebellions on 47 worlds using tactics so ruthless that entire species surrendered rather than face his wrath. But he had never encountered an enemy quite like humans. The general's first act was to review all intelligence reports about human resistance capabilities. What he read challenged everything the Empire believed about primitive species. These humans adapted faster than any enemy in Korath history and showed no inclination to surrender despite overwhelming odds. Du Hyun prepared his forces for the escalated conflict that was coming. The arrival of Mordian meant the aliens were taking the Resistance seriously as a military threat, but it also meant the war was about to become far more brutal than anything they had experienced so far. The stakes had escalated beyond the fate of one planet. The entire Korath Empire was watching to see if their legendary military could defeat a species of primitive savages. If humans could resist successfully, it would inspire revolts throughout their galactic domain, as General Mordian planned his campaign to crush human resistance once and for all. Du Hyun gathered his commanders to prepare for the ultimate test. Everything they had learned about alien warfare would be put to use in a final, desperate gamble for freedom. 6 months after the invasion began, the situation on Earth had changed beyond anything the Korath High Command thought possible. General Mordian's elite forces controlled only small fortified areas in major cities, while human resistance operated freely across vast territories. Most disturbing intelligence reports showed human technology advancing at impossible rates. Du Hyun had been promoted to general by the reformed United Earth Resistance Council, a coalition of military leaders and civilian governments that emerged from occupation chaos. The Resistance now fielded weapons that exceeded Korath capabilities manufactured in hidden facilities that became the foundation of humanity's war machine. Dr. Song's breakthrough was a weapon system using alien power sources to generate focused gravitational fields. The technology surpassed anything in the Empire's arsenal, representing fusion of human physics with captured engineering. test demonstrations, successfully destroyed targets. Through dimensional barriers thought impenetrable, the Resistance had achieved strategic advantages the aliens could never counter. Human forces moved freely through tunnel networks connecting major population centers. Communication systems based on quantum encryption remained unbreakable despite constant alien attempts at interception. Their supply lines were invisible and their numbers unknown. Most critically, Earth's resistance had become inspiration to subjugated populations throughout. The Korath Empire reports reached Do-Hyun of uprisings on 17 different worlds, all using tactics learned from studying human operations. The empire that maintained control through fear-faced challenges it never encountered. General Mordian made his final attempt to salvage the conquest through Operation Total Cleansing. Unable to defeat human resistance through conventional warfare, he planned to eliminate all life on Earth using orbital bombardment weapons. The planet's resources could still be harvested, but the population would be extinct too. Yun learned of this plan through intercepted communications and realized conventional defenses would be useless against orbital weapons. The Resistance needed to take the fight directly to alien command ships using captured spacecraft and weapons never tested in space combat. It was desperate, but extinction was the alternative. The assault force consisted of 12 captured fighters modified with human weapons, piloted by volunteers, with minimal space training. Their target was Mordian's flagship containing orbital bombardment systems and command facilities necessary to coordinate the attack on Earth's surface. Captain Li Wu-jin led the space assault while Du Hyun coordinated simultaneous ground attacks against remaining alien installations. The goal was creating chaos, so enemies could not respond effectively to threats from multiple directions. Their rigid command structure would become weakness. The space battle defied military history. Human pilots fighting in alien spacecraft with improvised weapons engaged Korath forces defending their most powerful vessel. The outcome should have been predetermined, but human adaptability proved decisive in ways no one expected. Wu Jin's fighter penetrated flagship defenses using maneuvers alien pilots never imagined possible. The human ability to improvise and take risks that seemed suicidal confused enemies trained for predictable combat patterns. Resistance pilots fought with desperation of people defending their home world. The pilots used their fighters' maneuverability to exploit weaknesses in Korath defensive formations. More importantly, they fought with complete willingness to sacrifice themselves for victory. This kamikaze mentality was something alien commanders could not understand or counter effectively. Wu Jin delivered Dr. Song's gravitational weapon directly into the flagship's power core. The resulting explosion destroyed the massive vessel and eliminated General Mordian along with his entire command staff. Orbital bombardment was terminated and remaining forces found themselves without leadership. The psychological impact rippled through alien ranks faster than the physical damage. Korath soldiers who had conquered hundreds of worlds suddenly faced the reality that humans could reach them anywhere, even in the safety of space. Their invincibility was shattered completely. Within 72 hours, surviving alien forces began emergency withdrawal from Earth. The conquest supposed to be completed in days had become prolonged disaster, costing more personnel and equipment than the previous 10 campaigns combined. They were retreating for the first time in Empire history. Du Hyun stood in ruins of Los Angeles watching alien ships disappear into space. Around him, human survivors emerged from hidden shelters and underground bases to reclaim their world. The cost had been enormous, with billions dead and cities destroyed. But humanity achieved the impossible. They faced an enemy with superior technology, overwhelming numbers and centuries of military experience. They were outgunned, outnumbered, and given no chance of survival by rational analysis. But they possessed something the Empire could not understand or counter. The absolute refusal to accept defeat had transformed ordinary humans into something more dangerous than their enemies imagined. Navy SEALs became the stuff of galactic nightmares, while human adaptability became legend throughout the stars. Earth was no longer just another conquered world. Park stood in his private quarters aboard the retreating command ship, composing his final report to the High Command. The primitive species using crude weapons had handed the mighty Korath Empire its first defeat in 300 years of conquest. Every assumption about human capabilities had been wrong. The resistance had grown from 3 desperate survivors hiding in tunnels to planetary liberation, force that drove off galactic conquerors. Human ingenuity combined with alien technology produced weapons and tactics that redefined warfare itself. They had earned their place among stars through blood and determination. Intelligence reports indicated the human victory was inspiring revolts throughout the Empire's subjugated species that accepted defeat for centuries were suddenly launching resistance movements using human tactics. The revolution was spreading far beyond Earth, threatening Korath. Control everywhere. Du Hyun gathered his commanders in the ruins of Alien Command Center that had been destroyed during the final battle. They had transformed from scattered survivors into military leaders of a species that would never again be seen as primitive prey. Their war was ending, but their legend was beginning. The galaxy would remember Earth not as another harvested world, but as the place where an unstoppable empire learned some species could not be conquered. Human determination, combined with tactical brilliance, had created something the Korath never expected. Effective resistance as alien ships disappeared beyond the solar system. Human civilization began the long process of rebuilding, but they rebuilt with knowledge of advanced technology captured from their enemies and understanding that they were not alone in the universe. The next time aliens came to Earth, they would find a very different welcome. The Navy SEAL who started the war hiding in tunnel rubble had become the general who ended it standing victorious on the bridge of a captured alien warship. Humanity had faced extinction and responded by becoming the most dangerous species in the galaxy. The hunters had learned to fear the hunted. 3 months into what should have been a completed conquest, Commander Park received news that filled him with dread. General Thak Mordian, the Empire's most feared military strategist, was coming to Earth to take control of Operations Park's failure. To subjugate a primitive planet was being seen as a threat to Korath reputation across the galaxy. Du Hyun had used the time wisely, transforming scattered resistance cells into something resembling a real military force. The Pacific Resistance now controlled significant territory throughout the western United States, operating freely in areas the aliens had declared pacified. Manufacturing facilities hidden in mountain caves produced advanced weapons daily. Dr. Song Ji-hai had joined the resistance after watching her family die in the initial invasion. As a former aerospace engineer, she brought knowledge that proved invaluable in understanding alien technology. Her hidden laboratories reverse-engineered captured equipment and developed new weapons that combined human innovation with Korath science. Her greatest achievement was a portable energy cannon that could penetrate alien armor at ranges previously thought impossible. The weapon used principles stolen from Korath engineering, but applied them in ways the aliens had never considered. It could destroy their heaviest vehicles with a single shot. Captain Bae Dong-min established training camps in remote locations where civilian volunteers learned military skills alongside captured alien weapons. These facilities produced a new generation of fighters who understood both human tactical doctrine and enemy capabilities. The resistance army was growing stronger. Daily, General Mordian arrived with a reputation earned through 47 successful campaigns against rebellious worlds. His strategy was simple but brutally effective. Identify resistance leadership through overwhelming surveillance, then eliminate them along with anyone suspected of providing support. The psychological impact usually broke enemy morale completely. The general's first operation was a systematic sweep of every major city using quantum scanners that could detect human life signs through solid matter. His forces would move methodically, building by building, killing anyone found in unauthorized locations. This would force the resistance into the open. Du Hyun had anticipated this exact approach and spent weeks preparing countermeasures. The resistance evacuated non-combatants to hidden facilities in remote wilderness areas while establishing decoy installations filled with materials that would confuse alien scanning equipment. When Mordian's forces swept through the cities, they found empty buildings and false readings. The quantum scanners detected human signatures that led to mannequins wrapped in organic materials, while real resistance fighters moved freely through areas the aliens had already cleared. More importantly, the resistance had learned to monitor all Korath operations in real time using captured communication equipment. They coordinated ambushes that eliminated entire search parties before they could report back. Mordian's methodical approach became a liability when facing enemies who predicted every move. The decisive engagement came when Mordian decided to capture Do Hyun personally. Intelligence indicated the SEAL commander was operating from a complex beneath downtown Los Angeles. The general deployed 1,500 soldiers, supported by aerial units and heavy weapons, to surround and eliminate the resistance leadership. The facility was indeed a major resistance base, but Do Hyun had expected this attack for weeks. The underground complex had been rigged with NAM's experimental explosives and equipped with weapons designed for fighting in confined spaces. Tunnel networks allowed defenders to move freely while attackers were trapped. The battle became a nightmare for Korath forces. Their superior numbers and advanced equipment meant nothing in narrow corridors where they faced human defenders who knew every passage. Alien soldiers trained for open warfare found themselves fighting room to room against enemies who had prepared for months. NAM's electromagnetic weapons disabled alien armor and communication systems in the tight spaces. The resistance fighters used captured Korath energy rifles with deadly precision while moving through hidden passages that allowed them to attack from unexpected angles. The aliens could not use their advantage in firepower. After 6 hours of continuous combat, General Mordian was forced to order a withdrawal. His forces had suffered over 400 casualties, dozens of vehicles were destroyed, and the resistance base remained fully operational. Worse, the humans had captured substantial amounts of advanced equipment. The psychological impact of the defeat was devastating. Throughout the galaxy, no force had ever successfully resisted General Mordian in direct combat. Yet, primitive humans using crude tactics had handed him his first military defeat. The reputation of Korath invincibility was beginning to crack. Do Hyun stood among his exhausted but victorious fighters, surveying the battlefield, littered with alien bodies. The resistance had evolved from desperate survivors into effective soldiers capable of defeating the Empire's best forces in direct combat. They were no longer fighting just to survive, but to win. Park monitored the disaster from his command ship, trying to understand how everything had gone wrong. The Empire had sent their greatest general and elite forces to crush a species using primitive weapons. Instead, they suffered their worst defeat in 3 centuries of conquest intelligence. Reports indicated that human technology was advancing at an unprecedented rate. Resistance weapons now matched or exceeded Korath capabilities in many areas. The primitive species was somehow innovating faster than a civilization with thousands of years of scientific advancement. Dr. Song's latest breakthrough was a gravitational field generator that could tear apart alien ships from the inside. The technology represented physics concepts that even Korath scientists had never mastered. Human theoretical knowledge combined with captured engineering was producing impossible results. The resistance had achieved strategic advantages that the aliens could not counter. Human forces moved through underground networks that connected every major city. Their communication systems remained unbreakable, despite constant attempts at interception. Supply lines were invisible, and bases were hidden. Reports reached Earth Command of uprisings throughout the Korath Empire. Subjugated populations on 17 different worlds were launching their own resistance movements using tactics learned from human operations. The empire that maintained control through fear was facing challenges it had never encountered. General Mordian made preparations for his final operation called Total Cleansing. Unable to defeat human resistance through conventional military action, he planned to eliminate all life on Earth using orbital bombardment weapons. The planet's resources could still be harvested, but the troublesome population would be extinct. Do Hyun learned of this plan through intercepted communications and realized conventional defensive tactics would be useless against orbital weapons. The resistance needed to take the fight directly to alien command ships using captured spacecraft and weapons never tested in space combat. The assault force consisted of 12 captured fighters modified with human weapons and piloted by volunteers with minimal space training. Their target was Mordian's flagship, containing the orbital bombardment systems necessary to coordinate the attack on Earth's surface. Captain Li Wu-jin led the space assault while Du Hyun coordinated ground attacks against all remaining alien installations. The Tai goal was creating enough chaos that enemies could not respond effectively to multiple simultaneous threats. Their rigid command structure would become a weakness. The space battle was unlike anything in military history. Human pilots fighting in alien spacecraft with improvised weapons engaged Korath forces defending their most powerful vessel. The outcome should have been predetermined, but human adaptability proved decisive once again. Wu Jin's fighter penetrated the flagship's defenses and delivered Dr. Song's gravitational weapon directly into the ship's power core. The resulting explosion destroyed the vessel and eliminated General Mordian, along with his command staff. Orbital bombardment was terminated, and remaining forces found themselves leaderless. Within 72 hours, surviving alien forces began withdrawing from Earth. The conquest that was supposed to be completed in days had become a prolonged disaster that cost the Empire more than their previous 10 campaigns. Combined, for the first time in history, they were retreating.